You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dmitri. I'm also the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, the marketing and PR firm that specializes in music innovation. This week, we're continuing our conference conversation series from last month's conference with a panel called Brands and Creators, Creative Collaborations Everyone Can Agree to. This panel covers all things brand partnerships, from what makes brands say yes to working with artists, as well as some stories about what not to do. The panel includes Ryan Roth from Pioneer DJ, Mario Ponce from Shure, Kate Sheets from Blipblox, and it's moderated by our very own Emily Francis from Rock, Paper, Scissors. If you're looking to land your first brand deal in the new year, this one's for you. But first, the news.
Rock, Paper, Scanner.
All right, we're back with a news roundup. This is Dmitri. I'm here with Tristra New Year Yeager. Tristra, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's cold, it's snowy, it's very holiday-y.
Woohoo! Well, we are getting towards that time of year, but we're not stopping our scanning of the news. Tell me, what have you been reading this week?
Well, this is a really interesting time of year. We get a lot of roundups, even in the sort of new, music trades. But there's also some reflection about what it all means. And I really enjoyed reading a piece by Tim Ingham called, it was on ... Suno, Songkick, and a Reddit Revolt. So what Tim has done basically like a really deep analytic dive into what's going on with the Warner Music and Suno deal. And the things that were interesting that he picked out, as you can tell from the header, one of them is Suno is acquiring Songkick, which is a pretty successful, from a consumer standpoint, app that Warner Music runs, but it has not been great in terms of its business profile. But Suno's taking that on. And also, Tim really points at some crazy financials when it comes to Suno's sort of budget for, what it's going to be spending the money that it's raised on its war chest on. And according to Billboard, Tim cites just 15% of the money was earmarked for data costs, which could mean a lot of things, but with only 5% for partnerships. So just 20% of a huge sum, $50 million, is going to be allocated to deal with rights holders, it sounds like. And that is, Tim raises a question like, is that enough? Like, what's going on here? And, Universal and Sony are still not on board with Suno, even though, Universal signed a deal with Udo, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the analysis is really interesting. And then Tim raises the question that he picks up from the community on Reddit that's like the Suno super fans, saying, well, China's going to come in with a model that's going to break this whole thing anyway. And I thought that was very interesting.
So in a way, he's saying, look, if we don't do deals with Suno and let Suno survive in some business fashion, it's just going to go to a place where there's going to be less regulation for Western and American companies.
Exactly. And so it feels a little bit like a potential race to the bottom, which is always a little exasperating. However, there was a really funny thing that I wanted to, like, on a lighter note, Tim cites a Redditor who had a very, very funny statement. He was frustrated with Suno becoming a licensed service because many Redditors find that somehow unappealing. But it said, that's it. I'm buying a guitar. So
love it.
In some ways, it could lead to the wider spread of music creation, but maybe not in the way we've all been thinking it would.
We just don't know if that Redditor was being sarcastic.
I mean, Redditors are always being sarcastic. I think you can pretty much assume that sarcasm is always there. But it did kind of beg the question, like, what if that is the reaction? People had so much fun making music this way that they're like, I want to make more music. And they actually make music, the IRL way.
I would love it.
Yeah.
Going back to the Songkick thing, it was unclear to me whether Suno wanted to do something in live music, because it's just totally like, wait, what does this have to do with the business model? Or if this was just part of the negotiation, did Warner just want to get this off their books and say, you're going to pay us, but we'll give you these assets as well. We don't know what you're going to do with them, but we also don't want them because Songkick probably scraped a lot of data for all that concert stuff too.
That's exactly the play, that the data and the listening habits would somehow be of use to Suno. Obviously, live music is not, if you have AI artists, which they're not even artists, if you just produce AI outputs, there's no artist associated with it. You really don't have any sort of potential to tour them at this point in time. Who knows? I'm sure some of our listeners have ideas about ways you could start to tour virtual people better, virtual, or they don't even have to be people, virtual performers. But yeah, it's a data play is the thought, though it seems like a kind of an odd one, like sort of an oblique one, but hey,
Yeah, like I said, I couldn't tell whether Suno asked for it, wanted it, or if Warner was like, here, this is part of the deal. Let's just get this.
And it's what if you buy this, I'm going to throw in a set of kitchen knives, right?
Exactly. What else have you been looking at, Tristra?
Well, I've been thinking a bit, and I would love your thoughts on this too, Dmitri. I've been thinking a bit about the state of investment in the music innovation space. And, we've heard let's say over the past year or so from people like Bob Moss, who really know what they're talking about. That's the former head of Techstars Music, a very thoughtful person who's like, investors just really, if they see music, they kind of take a step back and go, I'm not so sure, and maybe even hold their noses and walk away. And that's, so when it comes to things like apps or other development projects, right? But when it comes to IP, there's been quite a few deals and quite a few new funds announced in the past year. A lot of activity in that world, buying catalogs and managing catalogs. However, what recently in Music Business Worldwide, again, there was some coverage of an investment of a private markets investment firm. I wanted to make sure I got the right kind of firm, called Great Mountain Partners, based here in the U.S., that has a new fund of $600 million to look at not just buying IP, but also, this is their quote, accelerating convergence of media technology and consumer experiences. So also investing in, I would assume, platform apps, different kinds of services that would help make that vision a reality, and not just in let's buy whatever, a big legacy artist catalog or part of their catalog or their songwriting credits or whatever. And I really appreciated that. I was like, are we going to, with interest rates going down, are we going to start seeing some more activity in the general music and entertainment tech space that's not just about IP plays? This was kind of something that ran through my mind. What do you think, Dmitri?
Well, I read that and I wasn't sure if that's really what it meant. I mean, they have made investments. This fund has made investments in music tech platforms. It mentions that it had a stake in the AI-powered music platform Amy, but it's very hard to read between the lines. I do think that it's a constant kind of you have to take a close look at these funds to see, are they just investing in music assets, which is great. It's great for the industry. Mm-hmm. It creates more fluidity in people's ability to not only monetize, but also exit their music careers.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the pendulum is still over in the investing in IP. And in some ways, I think like music assets as opposed to technology itself. Mm-hmm. And I don't see this as a shift. But there's always a little percentage of tech stuff that's still getting invested in, whether people see the value in how technology is able to create more revenue around assets versus just the value of the assets themselves, the publishing and the masters around increasing royalties or increasing value over time and reselling it and so forth. I mean, a lot of the big moves in investment are on that side of the business. So I like your optimism, and also,
well, I want to raise the question about, I think you're right to be somewhat skeptical of my question and my slightly optimistic outlook. I'm also curious, as they're evaluating catalogs nowadays, and this is kind of off subject, but I'd love to hear if any listeners out there want to chime in and let us know. Now that there's this AI wave, sometimes some services like Deezer saying up to 20-30%. And it's a pro rata system, right? Literally, your assets are your revenue generating capacity is getting smaller and smaller, even with highly valuable assets.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason we see this push in the industry to have two separate ways of listening to music: the human stuff and the commercial stuff, and the AI stuff, the background stuff. But there is a convergence too. So we'll see. There will be AI generated music that will slip into the mainstream of that listening. But I do think that's what's at stake. It's funny. That's on the output side. On the input side, what's at stake is your entire creativity and the intellectual property of songwriting and recording is at stake. But then on the output, it's this flooded market of things that might start to sound more and more similar or compete at least.
Yeah, and the fact that it's like the pie, it's the same size pie and the slices are just going to get thinner and thinner and thinner because you have just so much content. Yeah, we live in interesting times.
Next week, we're going to I think we'll do a longer episode on some of the news that's hit the year. And I think we can get into some of the depth because I've seen some of the roundups of the news of the year come in. And I think, Trisha, we'll have a lot to talk about on that topic.
It's been a heck of a year.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting year. All right. So, Dmitri, has anything caught your eye this past week?
Well, I'm going to ask you more questions, but Hypebot did a piece called African Artists Reaching More Global Listeners with Help from Audiomack. I love following what Audiomack's up to. I feel like they hold kind of the soul of independent music as a streaming service right now in a lot of ways in terms of having traction. But it's interesting to see that it's happening in other parts of the world too. It's an American company that just got picked up by certain regions like in Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, and so forth. And I'm curious what you took away from this story.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to see a streaming service that is really, it's not just that people in these markets like the app or go to that, like that's their go-to app, but also that I think the folks at Audiomack take these audiences seriously. They take these listeners seriously. They take the artists seriously from these markets. And it's not just like, oh, look and see now we're in India, so we're going to talk to some Indian artists, whatever. It's not a global company kind of trying to sort of impose itself on a market or kind of, coming in with an attitude. I don't know.
So it's not just numbers is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really refreshing. It's really refreshing that there's a true interest in finding and supporting artists from these scenes that have gotten lots of global clout because it's good music, it's interesting music, but there's also a lot of people who really desperately need an advocate in the global system, right? And they're building what they can locally, but it's great to have someone else who's also supporting their efforts to hustle because people there are working really hard in certain markets to build an infrastructure.
Yeah, the other thing that's interesting about it to me is that Audiomack feels like it's this direct upload fan engagement component for the streaming services, which is not like you don't have to go through a distributor. It's not the same as the feeling of getting onto Spotify. Spotify has this, and Apple, it has this formality to it, whereas Audiomack is playing the role that I think SoundCloud used to play before they were trying to monetize distribution and things like that, where it just feels like this is where I host my music. This is where I meet my fans. This is where I, almost get feedback, et cetera. And what's interesting to me about the global part, like these hotspots in other parts of the world is that's what they need right now, right? That's where their music industry is right now to say, no, I'm not doing all this other stuff necessarily. I just want to get my music out there, engage with my fans. And it has a much more direct to fan feel to it.
Well, the other thing that's important is human curators and how they surface music that is relevant to groups that may not be a big enough blip on the global algo to get, to be featured prominently. So most people, not everyone's going out there like trying to discover new music like really actively and like the equivalent of crate digging, right? So what they get served is sort of really important in their listening habits. And Audiomack has humans doing a bunch of work. Spotify used to too, and there's still humans at Spotify that put together some playlists, et cetera, I believe. Are you still out there, humans? I hope you're okay. But like an algorithm isn't going to honor, a small scene or an emerging scene very well. It's just not the way it's going to work. So what Audiomack has done too is make sure there's enough human input to make sure these folks don't get the market specific details aren't kind of lost in this global wash, So I think that's really cool.
Awesome. Well, it's been great catching up with you, Tristra. I think we covered some interesting things this week, and I'm excited to dive in even deeper with you next week. Thanks, Tristra.
Thank you.
Did you know that this podcast is just one way Music Tectonics goes beneath the surface of music and tech? We know that innovation thrives on community and connection, so we bring innovators together with a free online event series we call Seismic Activity, and of course the Music Tectonics Conference every October in Los Angeles, and of course last but not least, meetups at major music industry events like the NAMM Show, South by Southwest, and Music Biz in Nashville. Stay on top of our schedule by getting the Music Tectonics newsletter right in your inbox. Sign up right now at musictectonics.com.
Now for our feature interview.
Well, Adam,
said, I'm Emily Francis with Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I'm going to let our awesome panelists introduce themselves. Let's keep it to 30 seconds if you can, so that we can get to the good stuff, right?
Hey, I'm Ryan Roth. I am the digital marketing manager here at Pioneer DJ / Alpha Theta. Been here for about 8 years, from St. Louis, Missouri originally. Live in Los Angeles now. Pretty much a pioneer. I'm in charge of all of the, influencer marketing, artist relations, and different verticals like public relations, any kind of like outward, social media, customer-facing campaign or marketing campaign. I've got my hands in it. I'm also a recording artist as well.
I'm Mario. I'm with Shure, and I'm in market development. I've been with Shure for about 7 years. I'm a Southern California native out of San Diego, born and raised in LA. And pretty much at Shure, we're in market development, so we're getting in our brand in front of a unique audience. We're engaging with customers. We're boots on the ground. We deal with emerging artists, with affiliates, with influencers of all types in all different spectrums. And that's pretty much what I do. Yeah, that's it.
And I'm Kate Sheets. I'm with Blipblox. I'm a co-founder. We're a full-time business. We have a lot of consultants and other people that work with us, but because of that, I am very in tune with all the creators that we work with and who we choose, and excited to be on this panel and hear what some of the other panelists have to say, and hopefully hear from some of you as well.
Awesome. Cool. So our topic is brands and creators. If any of you were there yesterday, I felt like it was kind of a great little appetizer to our panel today. So, first question, just how much have you guys leaned into creator partnerships as part of your marketing strategy in recent years?
I can start, yeah. Maybe we just kind of go down the line if that works. Yeah, creator partnerships. I mean, it's extremely important for us at Pioneer DJ. Everyone with a camera can be a creator at this point. We have a very small team, so we really rely on the customer to, they're putting out content every single day, really trying to put their best foot forward, show who they are as a creator. And, I think for us, UGC is just very important, either reposting or working with creators to come up with content that shows our gear in a unique new way. So I think that, without the creator, without the DJ, Pioneer DJ wouldn't be who we are today. So we really rely on it. I mean, it's a pretty important part of our strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, extremely important. 100% agree. I mean, the organic approach to dealing with customers and customer-facing stuff is extremely important. So we lean into it pretty heavily. We really rely on that organic approach for creators to use our products, use our microphones to do something very, very unique. And it kind of brings a unique organic approach to the brand that's extremely important. And we really, really, lean into it because it's a different part of the company that communicates this, this sort of richness when it comes to the product. It really shows people what we do. So we really, really lean into it very, very much.
And for us as a small business, it's extremely important because, one, we learn what different things people can do with our instruments. If you don't know us, we're a niche product. We make synthesizers and a groove box for all ages, but definitely younger kids. And what is really exciting for us is working with creators and seeing what they can do with our instruments as adults, and then also broaden that into kids. So it's actually working with creators has taught us about our business and about our customer more than, if we tried to go out and figure that out on our own. We get a lot of insight from talking to creators and working with creators. And it's also a really great way for us as a small business to connect with other emerging artists who might be in the same position as us, and we can help each other grow together. And we've seen it happen. It's really exciting.
How do you all determine what creators you're going to work with, and what are some things that creators do or can do that make them stand out to you? I'm sure you get dozens of emails every single day. So what are some things that creators do that make you want to work with them?
Yeah, I wish we could work with absolutely everybody, I mean, it's just there's not enough time in the day. Yeah, I probably get hit up maybe, I probably get 20 emails a day from creators looking to work with me. You have to vet them, you have to kind of take a look and see who's someone who's going to be professional, who's somebody who's going to be excited, and is it going to be an organic fit? For me, a lot of times, unless there's a new product launch, I don't really go out looking for creators. I kind of, we have a good amount of people that we work with already. So, either we'll build relationships with certain creators and then we'll hit them up if we need help with like pushing a product. Or if there's someone who kind of comes out of the woodworks and I'm like, oh, who is this? Like, we should definitely work with this person. Then we will take a look and see like what kind of budget we can allocate for video production for that. But I would say in general, it's a good mix.
Yeah, I agree. And, we do get hit up a lot. Think 20 emails of leads of people who want to work with us. But for me personally, it's the uniqueness of your content, how creative it is. If it's unique, if it's different, it doesn't matter to me, like the follower count or any of that stuff. It is the uniqueness of you and how you engage with your audience. That's what I look for in a creator, because I think it's extremely important that you have like your own original voice, that you're talking to your customer. It's very, very impactful. And that's something that I look for. And I go both ways. Like sometimes I'll be doom scrolling. I'll come across something just like, wow, where did this come from? And then sometimes I'll get a lead and I'll vet that lead. If you include your links, very important. Make sure to include all of your social links, very important. And sometimes I meet and find people that way. And then other times, in places like this, meeting a lot of great people and seeing, what's out there. So.
Yeah, I was going to start with that. The events like this are such a great way to connect with people in person. One thing that's challenging for us as a small company is, and we all kind of were chatting about this, is, when people approach you and say, I want one. That's not really going to get you very far, and it doesn't help us because, as they said, you have a lot of people approaching you. So generally what we like to do is, look at obviously what content people are creating and how it might fit in with what we do. And it's a challenge because we're as I said, our product is a different, unique product. And so we don't expect that people are going to be playing with products just like ours when they're doing content. But if it's something that we think could match with us, or the person approaches us with a really good idea, I think that's really exciting to us, is when somebody's already knows enough about our products that they say, I can see this, even if it's not specific, but I can see doing something with this. We've had a lot of successes with creators who have ideas or general ideas and then work with fitting our products into that. So that's one of the main reasons. Like they said, we really don't focus as much on how many people are on the followers there are, because those numbers change quickly. And so somebody, when you first start talking to them, might have a small number, and then by the time you actually get something out, suddenly they're huge. That happened to us with one creator. So that's something we tend not to look as much at than what the quality and creativity of what people are doing.
Yeah, and actually that's a really important point. I feel like for brands out there too who are looking for creators to work with, I feel like so many times they look for like the 1 million, 2 million, 3 million followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But honestly, a lot of it is like you're kind of taking an A&R approach to it as well. Like you want to invest in those artists like really early in their career, and you want to see the talent for who they are and not just their numbers on social media. Because honestly, so many of those can just be fabricated anyway. Yeah. And so we use tools and stuff to check if they're fabricated, but I typically like to look and see their community. I like to look and see like what does their community look like. So how many let's say they're posting, I don't know, their breakfast in the morning on social media, right? Like how many people are like, oh, that's so cool? Or like, are they just getting like a couple bots that are posting, right? Like 2 comments. No, I mean like, you want to make sure that you have an active, engaged community with whoever you're working with. Otherwise, I don't know, that it might not go very far with that partnership.
It's the vibe. Yeah.
True.
The vibe is very important.
And also when I'm just thinking of, we actually got a manager who contacted us and we were in a meeting, and instantly on this Zoom call, I was like, no. And I didn't even want to know anything else because she was not interested in listening to us, knowing about our product. She didn't know anything. She came to the call completely cold, and we felt terrible for her manager because her manager was lovely and seemed to know all about us. And it may have been a good fit, but that vibe was immediately off-putting. And it was like, no, that's not going to work, even though, it could have been very successful. But, you kind of have to pick between those things. And it probably wouldn't have been, because that vibe usually is, your first instinct is usually right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like in terms of also like professionalism too, like if the vibe is in shambles, like I'm not going to like, want to work with said creator. Really, I mean, in any sort of situation too. I mean, even just outside of influencer marketing, even like for collaborating like as a music producer or whatever. But yeah, I think that like working with creators who do know your product, if there's an organic fit, that's great. But I know so many people will just like spam to all the music companies like, hey, I want free gear. Hey, I want free gear. And it's like, those are just going straight to the spam mail. It's like we want like curation. We want like interest and
interest in the brand, and like folks that are already like, for example, with Shure, someone who's already using a Shure mic with their content that tells me you already know the brand. You already know, you already like it. It's already making your life better. So having that familiarity with the brand is something that I also look for. I don't specifically look for it. Sometimes I'll look for something that is really cool, and I'll say, well, you would sound better if you had a Shure microphone. So...
Yeah, and for a company like ours that's smaller, if you're approaching a smaller company like ours, we certainly do not expect you to have a lot of knowledge about our product, but to be open to testing it out, seeing what it can do, seeing how you can incorporate it into what you're already doing.
I feel like what I'm hearing is like follower count is kind of less important, like opposed to engagement and like the quality of the content. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
And the vibe,
100%.
yeah.
Yep.
How much creative freedom do you guys like to give people who you're partnering with? Like, do you like it and prefer when they come with like a bunch of creative ideas, or do you like to kind of maybe meet in the middle or give them guidelines, or how do you like to go about that?
I can start with that. Yeah, so funny enough, like when we were talking about this before, I thought to myself, I want people to come with ideas. But then as I'm thinking about who has actually been a successful creator for us, a partnership, oftentimes there isn't a specific idea, but there is more than, I'm just going to take a video of 2 seconds of me playing with your thing. So, those ideas sometimes come with all of us connecting with each other. It doesn't necessarily have to come with a very specific plan, but getting an insight of how our stuff might work with what they already do. And that's the other thing, is not being too outside of what is already going on a channel. So if we look at a channel and there's just nothing that looks like anything related to what we do, it's probably not the right fit. And obviously having some concept and some ideas is good, but you don't have to come with a specific list. I'm going to do this and then this and then this, because that doesn't feel organic. And I think the best creators do organic things.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm a control freak, so I have a list of things. No, I don't do that. But, it is important to offer an outline, maybe especially like for us, we use a creator content for different things. So like, let's say we're launching a new microphone, right? And we want to have a bunch of content in the pipeline for people to go and engage with this new mic. So because it's new, because it's fresh, there may be like a little outline there to kind of push you along, to help you. But the most important thing is, I'm talking to you because I like your content, and I want you to do that content for whatever it is that I've got. So that's where I'm at when it comes to that stuff.
You be you, right?
Exactly. And I do what you got to do. We're here to encourage you to do it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I think that like an outline or a creative brief, like we'll often send out like a creative brief to people, especially for a new product. Like, how many of you guys out there are DJs or like have DJ'd before? Yeah, so like whenever we launch a new product, there's like a manual that, I have to read it because it's my job. But when we send it to a content creator, we like to give like kind of some of the main points. Like, all right, like, so for example, we just did a DDJ Groove 6 influencer sort of project with a few different content creators out there. People who may have like kind of just started DJing or who have been DJing and are mobile DJs for a while, but maybe just like kind of stay in the controller world. And so we sent like a creative brief that said, hey, maybe make sure to like play with these 3 features. Here's a couple references to get you guys, started. And then also like, because we are a global company, we have brand guidelines. So like a lot of people will end up saying Pioneer. And so we'll have to say very clearly from the get-go, like, hey, like make sure you guys say Pioneer DJ. And well, now that we have a rebrand, Pioneer DJ Alpha Theta. please use that in your, copy. Please tag the right account. So many times it's crazy. I feel like 50% of the time they tag Alpha Theta Global, which is our European team, and we're Alpha Theta USA. So I'm like, I make sure that's very clear in the creative brief, but otherwise, like, have fun with it, just like do something different, do something weird. I mean, I love that stuff. I love when people think outside the box.
Totally. And we're global too, so we have guidelines. So just like suggested copy maybe you'll get. And then you could do whatever you want with it, But like I get a lot of Shure microphones. That's technically we are Shure microphones, but that's not us. We're Shure. So there's like little things like that you may not know. But yeah, you have to kind of, do it because that gives me approval to post it and all that kind of stuff.
One of the things that is important to us is actually talking about the quality of the video and the angles in which things are shot. We've actually had some content that it sounded good and it seemed good, except you could not see the product. And so, or the product was sort of hidden in a way that you couldn't really tell what they were doing. So, thinking about that, I think, when you actually come to deliver the content is, make sure that you can see what the product is, what your hands are doing with it, if that's or the sound of it, if for the microphone, that's really important. And the lighting, the sound, all of that stuff is like really important, and it's so disappointing when all those first introductory things click and then the content you get, you're like, well, I can't really use this. It's always really sad, and then you get into a point where you don't necessarily want to ask that person to reshoot everything. So making sure that once you actually get to the point where you're making the content, really make sure you're making that product look good, sound good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can't. There's so many times where like I've gotten the first draft back and they've said like a completely different product, and I'm like, this is not the product that you're demonstrating. But yeah, it is nice because if you get it done right the first time, I know that the creative brief kind of does help them do it the first time so they don't have to keep refilming. And unfortunately, if that happens, if they're kind of a newer creator, then that's great, and I'll work with them and I'll just say like, hey, look, like let's get this done right because I know that you're really passionate and your stuff's really cool. So I would love to put this on our page, but we just have a few tweaks, So yeah, and I think if they are like the more professional and the easier you are to work with, like the more likely we'll want to work with you in the future on further projects and stuff.
Awesome. What would you say is like the differentiation between a successful campaign and an unsuccessful campaign? Like, what are the things that you look at? Is it metrics or just vibe? Like, what's the deal with that?
I could start there. Great question. What I determine is the engagement of the content. So it's not about like what it looks like, what it sounds like. I'm assuming that that's going to be kind of taken care of because you're the person I want to work with. I dig your stuff, right? It's first thing I do is I dig into the comments and I scour the comments and I see what the engagement is like with that community. And if I see that there is a lot of engagement, there's some back and forth from the creator and their audience, and there's a ton of engagement, then that tells me this was a successful campaign. It's not necessarily the clicks that I get back to Shure or the clicks to, whatever they're getting their clicks to. It's more about that it resonates with their audience. And that's what it's about. It's, you're helping them make them sound better, that they would take it to their people to resonate with. That's basically what it's about. So that's what I determine success, is that you dig into the comments and you see what the engagement is. And if there's back and forth, then that tells me, yeah, this was impactful.
Yeah, and I mean, I echo that as well. Like engagement, like all the way, 100%. I mean, you could have, we just did a DDJ Flex 2 influencer sort of thing, and it was a global deal. So we did 5 in America, 5 in like each country, like kind of some of the major countries around Europe, and then we did like 5 in Latin America. And yeah, and essentially like if, I'd say on average, like everyone kind of averaged around like 50 to 100,000 views. So then you kind of take a look at the comments and you see like, well, who actually like cared the most? And I'll literally go in and screenshot those comments. Like some people will be like, oh, look at this person. Like maybe if they're in a different vertical than DJing, Like, oh, look, you got a big brand deal. That's sick. Like, I'd love to check this gear out, and that's like a huge thing for us if they're getting people to be interested in the gear, and then we'll want to work with them again. And also, like, at the very bare minimum, I mean, if we're going to work with somebody again, or what's successful is like kind of like what I was saying earlier, like, did you follow the the directions like of the assignment, right? I mean, if we want you to post a video about our Flex 2 controller and we need you to send it to us for review, but you just go ahead and post it anyway without sending it to us. I don't know if that's happened to you guys. We're like, this is probably not a successful campaign because we want, things done correctly. But yeah.
For us, we actually sort of have two different ways we work with creators. So sometimes creators will create content for us that is mostly used for our uses and we're not trying to connect with their audience necessarily. Then we have ones where we're trying to do both. And for us, yes, the comments are huge. We just had a really big person do a really cool post, and from our side, if it was posted on our site, I think it'd be great. Most of their comments were about their kids and people connecting with their kids. And so you're like, well, that was a success in that our product is out there. Bunch of people who probably never heard of us now are seeing this, but we didn't get that engagement of what's that gear? Oh, what's that? People were actually asking about a speaker it was in the shot instead of our products. So, but on the other hand, it was somebody big, they're naming us, that's exciting. That's probably content that's gonna be more valuable to us to use on our side than necessarily getting some of their audience to come over to us. So there's kind of different ways to use content as well. And I think the metrics for how you decide what was successful or not depends on what you're actually trying to use it for. But comments are definitely the way that you can, and having us engage in the comments too. We've had the opposite thing happen where we had something go up and the whole thing ended up a little unexpected. It was very exciting, and then to see the comments in there was great and really exciting and something that then we could engage with.
Yeah, I actually also, on the metric thing, I completely forgot to mention, but we also look at CPM, so cost per mil. There's, with digital marketing and influencer marketing, I mean, you can do so many things, paid media. I mean, you can really reach audiences that you want to reach right now with like a few clicks. But the reason that we want to work with these different creators and influencers and artists is because they have a really like special curated community of people, and they're dedicated. And so we'll take a look and see like, well, how much did this campaign cost? And, what was the cost per 1,000 views? And we'll compare that to kind of across the board, like our paid media campaigns and also like maybe other creator campaigns that we've done.
I mean, something just because it's coming up to mention, a small company like ours is really going to need to work with somebody who's willing to let us use their content in ads, because that's, we're still in a growth stage, and we can't just rely on that one post you did. We really need to be able to monetize that post. And sometimes it's a slow burn. Sometimes it doesn't really hit and start to get those conversions until it's been out there for a little while on our side. So, that's something that's really important to us too, if we're working with creators, is them being willing to do that with us. Give us those rights.
I would love to know, and we don't have to put anybody on blast, okay, but have you ever had a campaign that did not go as planned, either positively or negatively? Again, we don't have to name names, but we wouldn't mind knowing the tea, but I'm curious if you've ever had anything that like went totally differently than you expected in either a bad way or a good way.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have a blacklist of artists, right?
No, never.
No, of course not. I can start, actually. Yeah, I mean, trying to keep it like generally positive. I mean, there's totally tons of artists that we'll reach out to, or they'll reach out to us, and we'll get halfway through a campaign and they'll just like disappear from the face of the earth. And I'll be like, well, you have the gear, you have signed a contract, like you should probably deliver the content. So we're not going to work with you anymore. Like that's just that.
Fair enough.
But I mean, and that's happened. I mean, more often it doesn't happen, right? It's pretty rare that happens, but it has happened probably 5-10 times to me.
Yeah, I think the thing that I get the most is you work with someone new and, send them the product, you work it all out, maybe they'll do the content, and then that's it. Like there's they either disappear, you don't see them anymore, they kind of ghost you, if you will. I think it's happened. It happens actually more than you think. And I think that's kind of the worst thing that I've experienced, is they just disappear after you put all the time in and you find them and you you reach out and you do the emails and you go back and forth, or maybe you actually meet in person or like virtually and you have a discussion about the content, and it's great, and it comes out and it's pretty good, and it's a start, and then I don't know, that's it. Like, it's end of story, done.
Yeah, and I actually, just to really quickly interlude here, I really, like, when we do work with new creators that we've never worked with before, like, for that reason alone, like, I don't know, I like to start and dip my toes in with maybe a lower cost product. You know, like, I do a lot of influencer campaigns with our headphones or with our speakers, you know, and they only cost a couple $100. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, worst case scenario. But I mean, typically if like higher priced products, you know, I mean, we've all got pretty expensive products here. So, you know, you got to kind of work your way up for those.
I think I have two things. One is on the less positive side, which was somebody where we negotiated something where the initial video was going to be kind of high value with the expectation we would get more things at lower value. And then after he gave us the first one, he wanted to come back and get even more money and basically would not do anything else with us without that extra money. And we felt so slighted on that, you know, that we were agreeing to an amount that we thought was more than we should have been paying to begin with the expectation we were going to get more. And, you know, that person has come back to us and said, you know, not I'm sorry, but sort of, oh, I'd still love to work with you. And we're like, yeah, but you already kind of messed this up. So, you know, and it's too bad in that case in particular, because that was somebody who did make great content. And so it really is, you know, you're sad when you think, oh, we could have done all these things, but then you approached us in such a way that really didn't make us feel good. But the most unexpected one we had, actually, Emily was involved with. She found, so she's our PR person, and she actually found someone, I think, right? You sourced her, and got in touch. A little bit different outside of the box for us, but we are outside the box for her, I should say. But had a great phone conversation, got her the product, and she was still working out what she was going to do, and she just happened to be interviewing another influencer and pulled it out of nowhere. And he did the coolest thing. And so we ended up with her, you know, sort of moderating him, playing with the instrument, having never seen or heard of it before. And the comments in that particular video were like so awesome for us that it just went beyond. So that's why, you know, you don't always know what you're going to get. Sometimes it is that negative side of not getting what you want in a bad way. But in this case, it was not expecting to have actually two influencers. Although that did complicate us being able to use that content. So we can't actually use it in any of our ads because of the other influencer. So, you know, there's good and bad of that, but.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Can we say who it is?
Sure.
It was, you guys know Emily Harpus and Anthony Fantano? Yes. Yeah. It was so.
Did you see the video? Well, go check it out, because he at first was like, I don't know what this is. And then all of a sudden he starts playing it and he gets into this groove with it. And it was so fun for us to sort of see him discover the product as well. And then as he's jamming, it gets cooler and cooler and cooler. And so then all the people watching it were engaging with that. And that's exactly who we are as a product. So
he was like, I'm going to start a synth punk band.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so fun. Yeah, that was such a good one. Yeah. Cool. Well, we have about 10 minutes left. So maybe we could open it up to some audience questions. Yeah.
I feel like I'm making some assumptions, and I guess I just want to check them. Like, are these paid relationships that you have with these creators? Are they in kind? Like, how much are you paying or budgeting, and how do you kind of check your ROI around that in that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, and we didn't actually get into the kind of the compensation part of it much, huh? So in general, I would say every brand is going to be a little bit different in how they do partnership deals. And like for example, like as soon as I started working here, it's like, 8 years ago, I never used the word like sponsor, right? Like we don't sponsor artists, we don't sponsor DJs, we partner with them. And a lot of it is going to be content partnerships. It's going to be organic. It's going to be, long-term partnerships with people that we want to, foster this relationship where they're using our product. We're putting them on and they're putting us on. And so in terms of like the bare minimum, it's product, right? Bare minimum is like we're going to send out product to certain artists, certain, creators, because they have to have the product to create the video, right? Or the photo. Very often they do.
Yeah.
Now it depends. So there's a few different types of creator, and we've got your music tech reviewer, right, who doesn't keep the product. They'll review it and send it back. And those types, like the Andrew Huangs of the world, they're going to review it, they're going to send it back. DJ Mag, review it and send it back. But if you are working with somebody maybe in a different vertical, or somebody, we'll consider different arrangements. And I would say in terms of compensation, like without getting into numbers, I'll just put it this way: we had somebody reach out to us and ask to work with us. And they asked for $40,000 for a YouTube video, and we laughed at them and said, that is not even anywhere close to the budget that we have for video production. So it would be a stipend, like a video stipend, to help them produce it, right? The script, the video, the talent, the time, right? But in general, no one's going to get rich off of that, yeah.
Yeah, basically said the answer I would give. Usually it starts with product. That's where it begins. And sometimes the unboxing of the reviewers, they'll send it back. Even though I'm like, you could keep it, they'll send it back anyways.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yeah, and I think it's just because they want to keep their channel, their integrity or whatever. They could say, this was, sent to Shure, or sent from Shure, but we sent it back. But most of the time, that's part of the compensation, is to have the product so you can use it in the future. And you're not going to get rich off this stuff. Like, I've had people who, YouTube video, I start at $25,000. Okay. Awesome.
Good luck with that.
That's not going to be from us. But, but it happens, and we have to be honest about it. The way that you're going to make some money is your monetization, is how you, on your end, convert that content into some kind of monetization for yourself. Yeah, sometimes there's a stipend, sometimes there's just product seeding,
Yeah, to me, it's part of, this is where it becomes an ecosystem, is that you've got this now product that now you can use for other things. And, your creativity is what's actually driving your monetization. Relying on brands like this to pay your bills is probably not going to work out. But for us, it does start with the product, and often we will give a stipend in addition for the learning curve. But, those people that we've worked with for many years, that becomes other ways to get revenue from us. So, they're performing live doing something, they're going to events like this, there are all sorts of different ways, and that's somebody that we've built a relationship with. So yeah, it might start with gear and a little bit, and then build into more opportunities to, make money in other ways.
Yeah. On that, working with a brand that doesn't necessarily have budget, but has lots of product to seed and gift, how do you incentivize the talent that you are sharing that product with? And how do you see how you can get them to the next level? Have you had to entice them along the way to go from a strictly gear relationship to?
I think it's consistency in your content. So you're starting out with the product seeding is your sort of entry into this relationship with a brand, right? And you want to see it through. So, and it's going to take time, because speaking for myself, with our brand, we have budgets, and we have to adhere to those budgets, and we have to talk about ROI to the people who are in charge. So if I say, well, I want to seed, so-and-so some product, they're going to look at that, and they're going to see what the content is, right? But think of it as your doorway into that relationship, because it will eventually lead somewhere if you're consistent with your content, if you're engaged with your community, if you're using that product that we seeded to the best of your ability, to the point where we're like, yeah, we have a new product coming out, and you did such a great job with the last one. I'm calling you or I'm emailing you because I know you are going to make some amazing content.
And being responsible.
You are going to make some amazing content.
Being responsible, when he contacts you and says, you did great, get right back to him, and follow up, because, it goes both ways, and not ghosting.
Yeah, true. And actually, I would also say that communication is so important. If it takes someone 3 weeks to get back to me on a simple question, it's going to be difficult for me to kind of keep up with that relationship. But also, I would say it depends on the brand, on just be honest with them and ask them like, hey, like, do you have a budget for this, right? Because if they have a budget and they see the value, it's kind of like anything. Like for people out there who are recording artists, like, and are looking for sync deals, sometimes the company may have a budget to pay somebody for sync. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. So I think asking them that first is important because, I would say the other thing being like an organic fit. So like, I mean, I'm not going to go reach out to like, Maybelline for a deal, like, as an artist myself, I'd probably reach out to a company that I know I'm using their gear like regularly, and I would love to do more content for them. And I think that if you're able to show, I mean, I really love it when an artist is super excited to work with us. I mean, even if they have like 10,000, 5,000, 10,000 followers, I'm like, oh, this artist is going to be really fun to work with, and they're going to put together some really cool content. And so I would rather do like deals like that, honestly.
Ryan, I'm just picturing you like with guy liner on behind the DJ deck. Brought to you, #Maybelline, #ad.
I was in musical theater, so there was a moment.
Okay, all right. Multifaceted. Yeah, we got time for one more. Yeah.
Do you work with events, properties, festivals, and so forth as well?
Absolutely. We work with BMI at like, what we're doing with BMI is we're at the BMI stage at like Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, and we're working with emerging artists in that way. We're like in the green rooms, we're demoing products, we're helping them on their journey. We sometimes it's a meet and greet. If we hit it off, maybe it's a longer conversation with gear or something like that. But a lot of artists at that level are, they're hungry and they're looking for assistance with like microphones, or maybe they don't know what mics to use in the studio, and we'll help them out with that. So we definitely do. And the one off the top of my head right now is BMI is the one that we primarily work with.
We'll do the green rooms as well. We call them like artist lounges. And so like Movement Detroit, EDC, like EDC Orlando coming up, we're doing something, but pretty regularly. And it's a different tier. It's a different like customer that we're working with, right? So I mean, we've got our artist relations team, which deals with the pro touring DJs. And then we've got, the influencer marketing and the content creation team, which deals with people who post more, regularly on social media, video content, who may not be touring DJs, but may also be really passionate musicians. But in terms of events, all the time, that's a big part of our budget.
Ours too.
Awesome. We are at time. Thank you guys so much for being here. Give it up for your panelists.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know we do free monthly online events that you, our lovely podcast listeners, can join? Find out more at musictectonics.com. And while you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference and sign up for our newsletter to get updates. Everything we do explores the seismic shifts that shake up music and technology, the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. Connect with me, Dmitri Vitsa, if you can spell it. We'll be back again next week, if not sooner.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.